You saw the fly? Where?
It's in a web.
Those were the days when people screamed in theaters.
To be able to teleport from one place to another, people or objects, I mean, my God, it would truly revolutionize our lives.
I was terribly excited by the film, the whole idea and concept of it.
I believed it could happen. I believe someday it will happen.
So The Fly is kind of a unique hybrid of science fiction, gothic horror, with a little touch of the Phantom of the Opera.
It's a tiny, completely non-human, filthy little insect. So for a horror film, that's a very, very effective choice.
The Fly was made at a time, it was after the atomic bomb, after the end of World War II, and there was this general suspicion of science and scientists. And there was this whole idea that atomic radiation could change things in ways like turning people into monsters or creating giant insects or whatever.
Once we harnessed the atom for destruction, we realized that man had the power to warp science in not necessarily acceptable ways.
I had read the short story by George Langelaan, which was in Playboy magazine, and I thought it was a great story, and I thought it would make a terrific movie.
It was immediately snatched up by 20th Century Fox. They rushed it into production because it was very shortly after the short story was published that the movie was announced.
Dead about 30 minutes.
It was a small budget production for 20th Century Fox, but that's saying a large budget production for the typical science fiction horror film in the 50s. The studio Fox gave it that sheen, you know, that good housekeeping seal of approval that studio pictures have, and they cast Vincent Price and Herbert Marshall, who were two very well-known character actors and stars of the last couple of decades in Hollywood.
What do you think?
Would you show me your brother's laboratory?
Yes, of course. This way.
Vincent Price at that time was not yet really a horror star. He did a few horror films before, but he was not yet a typecast horror star. So when he did The Fly, he was basically a character actor playing that role. He was a very respected character actor. So when Vincent Price and Herbert Marshall were in that film, it put kind of a stamp of legitimacy to it.
For the longest time as a kid, you know, I used to think he was British, you know, because he had this cultured villainy about him that, oh, this guy's got to be British, but, you know, he was born in, you know, St. Louis, so he was just such a fine actor.
The trailer for The Fly is just Vincent Price walking out of the darkness into the audience.
I'm Vincent Price. What unearthly horror did that girl gaze upon? The fly's on its way. Watch out for it. It's far beyond anything your mind could ever conceive.
He just gives it all this theatricality and ominous kind of foreboding.
What is it, monsieur?
Stroke count. That's the stroke count.
I don't understand.
Whoever did this to Andre, it reads 2. They did it twice.
Twice?
David Hedison was known as Al Hedison back then. He was a good actor, and he wasn't really well known at the time, so he was like a newcomer. And so I think on that level, it wasn't like seeing a movie star turning into a fly. It made it more believable that this person was turning into this monster.
I was terribly excited by the film, the whole idea and concept of it. I really believed that, you know, atoms can break down. I really believed that there was a fly in that chamber. I really believed the hard work that went into the scientist's work, Andre Delambre, to get this thing right.
Most of the film, Al Hedison, or David Hedison, is shrouded in a silk shroud around his face, a cloth. And at a very, very dramatic moment in the film, she pulls it away.
I know it's working!
And when she does, it reveals this superb mask that Ben Nye made of the fly with the twitching nose and the multiple lens eyes. And it's just a classic moment of screen horror.
But the audience was screaming. People were screaming in the audience and covering their eyes.
I was stuck with the mask now, wasn't I? But I really tried to do the best I could under the circumstances to make it as real as possible.
I love the way he plays silently, portrays that fly man with the twitches and, like he's not in control of his arm, he's not in control of his head. He really did a wonderful job.
I knew the film was going to go through the roof, and it certainly did. It made a lot of money for Fox that year.
This film surprised everyone by making $3 million in the first month it was released, and of course 20th Century Fox immediately went into second gear to make a sequel.
I was very happy to work with Vincent Price. With Vincent, it was like a party. It was such fun to work with him. And he was so giving too. I was very young at the time, and it was one of my first films.
I want you to work with us, I'll work with you. Not because I'm won over, or have any hope that you'll succeed where Andre failed, but to protect you, if I can, from the deadly consequences of building this device.
Return of the Fly, which was made right on the heels of the first one, was also shot in the CinemaScope process, but it was shot in black and white. And Vincent always regretted, he said, I think the film would have been more dramatic had it been shot in color.
It was ridiculous to shoot it in black and white. I love black and white, but I mean, you do two pictures in black and white, not one in color and the other in black and white. But it was not a bad film. It was quite exciting.
It was kind of a challenge because we shot on the lot at 20th Century Fox in 10 days. Now, in those days, you'd shoot a musical short in 10 days. So it was a real challenge on the lot. We had some top Fox people on the camera and support people. And we shot in CinemaScope, which was kind of unusual to shoot black and white CinemaScope.
They had a bad guy in Return of the Fly who was working with the son of the original scientist, and the bad guy deliberately puts a fly in the cabinet after he knocks our hero out. So our hero is a victim.
They'd hired a very tall stunt man who wasn't very good, actually, to wear the head. So I didn't have to work those days. I had never met Vincent Price before. He was very gracious, very cordial, and one thing I remember about him, other than the fact that we became personal friends, was that he was a very generous actor.
You wouldn't believe. You would not believe.
Later on, in the 60s, Lippert, which was the British arm of 20th Century Fox, made yet a third fly picture called Curse of the Fly. There is no fly in Curse of the Fly, but there are plenty of mutants that have, gone wrong in their efforts to perfect their teleportation machine. It's kind of a dark, spooky, weird movie. The female protagonist is mad. There's some hideous mutants, and it's an effective movie in its own right, I think.
By that time, Price could make films, but he could not make any horror films for any other company other than American International, which became kind of an albatross for him because they weren't giving him, towards the end, the roles he wanted, and he had to turn down things. So even if he'd been offered Curse of the Fly, he couldn't have made it. Curse of the Fly is a favorite of mine. It really wasn't given the release of the first two pictures with Vincent Price. Curse of the Fly was filmed in England with Brian Donlevy as the patriarch of the Delambre family, and Herbert Marshall his role was given to another actor, a Canadian actor, an actor who was pretending to be Canadian, and they were just continuing the family name and the family business of trying to teleport objects from one place to another.
The film was directed by Don Sharp, who was quite a good horror film director in England. And he does a quite creditable job in Curse of the Fly.
They have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams because they can literally teleport each other from one country to another, but not without problems, because after all, it's a horror film.
That's one thing that the genre can do, is really like step outside the boundaries of what's socially acceptable.
The film has a lot going for it. It's a very taut kind of literate script, and it just wasn't what one would expect to be the sequel to Return of the Fly. But it's a fine kind of climax to this trilogy.
I never thought it would become a cult film and become as popular as it has. And it amazes me. And I can't believe 50 years has passed.
You can take matter in one place, reduce it to electrons, transmit the electrons, and reconstruct the matter. It just made such sense to me that I thought this is not entirely science fiction.
Combining the genes of a man and a fly is, you know, that's in questionable taste, and yet they did it in a very big studio way that made it seem like it was acceptable until you talked about it later while you were eating dinner. The audiences only really go to the movies for 3 reasons. They go to laugh, they go to cry, and they go to scream. If you scare them, they will come, and The Fly really did scare them.